Which country has the worst tourists? From the sunburnt, wrinkly British lads to the hairy Balkan dads, we're gonna cover all of the notorious nationalities, alright? First off, probably the most infamous of them all, Chinese tourists. Now, over the years, they've gained quite a reputation, including talking at an obnoxiously loud volume, being mean to minimum wage workers, and, let's say, relieving themselves in public. I don't think that's really a fair representation of the entire Chinese foreign tourism industry. I actually think if we're talking lack of manners or obnoxious loud rudeness, American tourists are like 10,000% worse. And the truth is, these Chinese tourists are the only people keeping multiple outdated industries alive. I mean, have you ever seen anyone else travel in a guided tour or use brochures or take photos using portable cameras, not their phones? Like, bruh, without Chinese tourists, who is gonna drink all the imported Tsingtao? But the real question I want answered is why they even go abroad in the first place, when they have their own replica cities of Paris and London and many different tourist destinations within China. Not only are they way cheaper, also they're seemingly way cleaner, way safer, way less crowded, have better weather, better food, and most importantly, less French people. Like, bruh, if anything, we gotta start traveling over there to our own cities as tourists. Talking about staying within a familiar environment, these next tourists have absolutely boycotted the aviation industry. These guys are the reason why European airlines are going out of business. But before I reveal what tourists I'm on about, I gotta quickly tell you about World of Warships, the action-packed, thrilling, free-to-play game available on PC. It's actually scientifically impossible to get bored of this game, since they're releasing new content every month, be that ships, in-game nations, cosmetics, or even ship classes. There's always gonna be fresh gameplay experiences in World of Warships' stunning 12v12 arenas. For example, their epic new Godzilla vs. Kong and Transformers update. Just look at these amazing crispy graphics. They've really gone above and beyond by even including dynamic weather, which has just been updated with stunning new water textures, which makes the game's seas ultra realistic. We're talking 40 different unique maps, as many iconic ships as you could ever dream of. Oh, did I mention it's also available on consoles? So what are you waiting for? Sign up now using the first link in the description and use the code BRAVO to receive a huge starter pack including 500 doubloons, 1.5 million credits, 7 days of premium account time, and a ship. Anyway, Balkan tourists exclusively travel by car, even if it costs way less and is way quicker to fly from Belgrade to Budva, for example. You bet ya Marco is driving. Traveling by car instead of planes allows Balkan families to transport the essential stack of cigarette multi-packs, the cooler full of XL salami, homebrewed rakia and bread rolls, and of course, the biggest Chinese speaker that could be found at the local flea market, which is probably the most essential travel item for Balkaners, since it's well known that Eastern European beaches cannot be enjoyed without blasting patriotic war songs at a full volume through terrible plastic speakers.
I am more white than you were just blonde hair, Greek, brown, gypsy.
Side note, you can also for some reason find Balkan dads mystically chilling in the hoods of America. No one knows why they're there, it's just accepted. Speak of the devil, next up we've got American tourists. Now, in central London, there exists two pretty big, equally awful subcultures of humans. A, British businessmen, and B, American tourists. One is grinning with their big white sparkly chompers out, and the other looks as if they're in a constant state of abysmal f***ing rage. It's funny though, because Americans have quite an unrealistic view of Britain. I don't know if you guys have noticed from my videos, but we don't actually all walk around with top hats on, sipping our morning tea, whilst whistling our favourite symphonies, enjoying the fresh country air of Bentley Portsmouth. That's just not the way it is, unfortunately. And very occasionally I come across American tourists who've by some insane lapse of judgment ended up in Birmingham city centre with that idealistic view of Britain as their expectation, and you can just see the deep set regret, trembling fear, and the shocked realization behind their eyes whilst they try and play it off with their optimistic, loud, obnoxious comments. Oh my god, they have a mall here? As I said, guys, London in China, you're probably gonna have a much better time over there.
Did you just say the goddamn C word to me, boy?
Another group of obnoxious ass tourists are Australians. I swear they exclusively go to Bali, because I don't know, they just have to go somewhere that also has f***ed up insects and clubs that play that one f***ing Land Down Under remix on loop every night. There's two main types of Australians you can find in Bali. The f***ing tradies and the digital nomads / enlightened hipsters. this might be the first time ever that tradies are the better option to chill with, even though they do all think Bali is a country. And it is funny how a lot of, politically correct Melbourne hipsters conveniently forget all the questionable things the Indonesian government's doing when it's time for a luxury zen holiday, Anyway, on the subject of tourists that exclusively travel to controversial countries, we have Russian tourists. You can find these guys in Turkey, Israel, Azerbaijan, basically anywhere that loves unless you're a baller Russian dad, okay? You can find these guys exclusively in Thailand. Yeah, there's just something about Thailand that really attracts traditionalist, religious, non-woke, non-Westoid Russian men. Yeah, okay. Alright, and now for my favorites on this list. The famously respectful, polite, well-behaved British fucking tourists. Little anecdote. So in the last year, I've been to Eastern Europe a few times. And the one thing you realize in these countries, when you speak English with a British accent, you get some funny looks. And I didn't fully understand why this was until a couple months ago when I was in Poland with some friends. And one night, me and my mate were walking through the relaxed, quiet main street of Gdansk on a Thursday night. Very well looked after, very pretty. There's no clubs or anything, just restaurants and very chill bars. And then, British jump scare. Like 5 hammered English lads pop out of the ornate archway, just belting at the top of their lungs.
We want we do. We want we do.
In that moment, such a massive jolt of national shame coursed through my nervous system that I spoke in a Swedish accent for the rest of my trip. Nah, I didn't really, but as Gatsu said in his video,
it's hilarious how a vocal minority of UK citizens have created a horrible stereotype for all British tourists aboard.
An example of that vocal minority are the divorced middle-aged British women who travel to absolutely poverty-stricken African countries such as the Gambia, where the average salary is $58, and they use their Western money to entice, let's just say, more attractive men than they'd get in England. And if you're sitting there thinking that doesn't sound too bad, it's not that deep, bruv. Just put yourself in the Gambian dude's shoes. Would you really want to have to smell Margaret's baked beans breath wafting past your face every day just because you're starving and desperate for money? And Margaret just happens to have more money in her Barclays savings account than your entire country has in its GDP. Tourists aside though, British people have absolutely destroyed some parts of the world. And I'm not thinking that, I'm thinking more this part of Spain. Marbella's industry especially is completely built around selling British people gack for 9 months of the year. Now I was actually in this kind of area this summer, but then instead of following up the coast to British hell, I went to a bunch of smaller towns up here. And honestly, probably the most picturesque places I've ever been to. These cities were unfathomably cool, and because there's no fucking beach there are no British tourists, despite Marbella being only 50 kilometers away. And the contrast between the two is so massive, they literally feel like 2 different countries. I did unfortunately have to get the bus through Marbella and Malaga on my way home, which was a depressing way to end my Spain trip. But at least it wasn't as depressing as a cruise ship full of British people. For Brits, Marbella is the normie choice, okay? Let's say you've really saved up the big pounds, working in the biscuit factory, and you want to go for a more tropical but equally shit option. Look no further than a cruise. It comes with everything British people love: gambling, shit, food, and deck chairs. Another group of people who love cruises are the Nordic countries. Because alcohol is very heavily regulated and expensive in this region, it's pretty common if you're in Stockholm or Helsinki or Copenhagen to hop on a booze cruise to one of the Baltic states. This comes with many attractions. The alcohol is duty-free on this boat and comes served with terrible live music and unregulated gambling. Sounds absolutely phenomenal. Also, the alcohol is about 95% cheaper in the Eastern European destination, be that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or even Poland. So Finns, Swedes, and Danes are known to get on the boat back home hauling crates and crates and crates of absolute vodka or Finlandia or whatever those silly Danish people drink. I don't know. And those are pretty much all the big tourist groups I could think of. Please let me know in the comments if I missed out your country's funny touristic habits. But there's one big question that still needs answering. Who is the worst? Here is my potentially controversial rating. Feel free to argue about it as much as you want in the comments. And don't forget, link in my description, code BRAVO.